All right, our camera's inside the White House where President Donald Trump just wrapped up his meeting with the Prime Minister of Iraq. Iraq is really facing a lot of pressure to disarm a network of Iran-backed militias that operate in that country, some of which launched attacks on U.S. bases after the U.S. and Israel launched their war against Iran in February. So let's talk about this live to CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe in Washington, where these conversations are happening in real time. So you know this, I know this, the world knows this. The Middle East, a very tense region right now. What are you hearing in that meeting?
Well, and of course, by having the Iraqi leader here at all, it's a reminder that we have spent much of the last quarter century watching the United States and Iran try to maintain dominant influence over Iraq, given that it sits there next to Iran and, of course, given the war that we had there. Perhaps the biggest headline that the president made, though, in this appearance alongside the Iraqi prime minister has to do with Iran and the fact that the president is now reversing what he put in place yesterday, which was a 20% toll on ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. He's now reversed that decision and explained a little while ago why that is. Take a listen.
Well, we don't think we need the military there anymore. It's a very big operation. And what we do have is the oil companies are all going in now, and they're doing partnerships with Iraq, and they're getting along very well. The relationship is a whole big relationship where we don't need the military there. We're there to help them. We're there to protect them if need be, but we don't think that's going to be necessary.
That was actually the answer to the second point I was going to make, and that is that the president's now saying that the U.S. military doesn't need to be in Iraq the way it once was, and that there's a better way to do this through economic partnership and through making use of Iraq's oil reserves and trying to develop that industry. So yes, that is a big reason why these two met today, is the president saying to the Iraqi leader, let's find economic ways to work together, and there isn't a need to necessarily have troops there. Of course, the president, when he was a private citizen, was quite critical of the war with Iraq. But on Iran, here comes sound number two. He did say that, in fact, he's reversing his decision on the Strait of Hormuz, and here's why. Oh, we don't have that bite. Okay. What he said is essentially that they have, there's no need now to put tolls in place, and that instead a lot of these countries that move ships through the Strait of Hormuz are instead vowing to spend billions of dollars in the United States or on American industry. And among others, he said he spoke to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait about avoiding those fees. So again, a threat made 24 hours ago is now gone, which is consistent with what his administration had been saying, which was that no country can charge fees or tolls on international waterways. So why the president yesterday decided to come out and say that was unclear, but now 24 hours later, read he has reversed course.
Making it all make sense, rolling with the punches as he does brilliantly every day. Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much. Let's continue the conversation live to CBS News Middle East contributor Courtney Kealy. So Courtney, you heard what Ed had to say by way of that reversal on the Strait of Hormuz. What does that tell us about sort of the practical challenges of the U.S. policy on the Strait of Hormuz?
It doesn't really tell us much, because it was really a war of words yesterday while there's airstrikes being launched from both sides. So there's been a clear escalation. He's not talking about a de-escalation. He was just talking about whether Iran could charge fees or the U.S. could charge fees. And most people think that neither should or could. So I was very curious about how the U.S. is going to carry that out. It would have required intense U.S. naval supervision, incredible amounts of money to keep the military doing that as well. Right now, it's not hitting population centers like Tehran, but the U.S. is still hitting the south, and Iran is still launching attacks into those Gulf countries that President Trump indicated would be investing in the U.S. instead of paying this 20% fee to get through the Strait of Hormuz. So all money that they're talking right now, but what they're not talking about is this decision, or this not a decision about the memo of understanding. It seems to be the ceasefire's over. It seems to be in tatters, and even the part of it that that was there is so ambiguous as to who's to control the Strait of Hormuz that Iran thought it was theirs. So we're not anywhere near any understanding right now, and the ceasefire is definitely off. Although the toll fees seem to be not being used at this point.
All right, so let's get down to the brass tacks. That 20% fee, off the table, at least for now. But the Strait of Hormuz really, as you point out, as Ed points out, is still a major flashpoint. Always has been, right? The U.S. is set to resume its blockade on Iranian ports. That starts today after 4 p.m. Eastern. So how concerned should the world be about disruptions to global oil supplies if this standoff continues? We've been here before.
Yeah, we've been here before, and we're trying to get back where we were in late February, and nobody's able to get back there. The oil prices, Brent and crude, they're up. They're looking like they could go off the chart. It's not the numbers going down as we saw briefly for the last few weeks. The Iranian people are still faced with this terrible, emboldened regime. The hardliners are really feeling emboldened too, feeling like after Ali Khamenei's funeral, the former supreme leader, that they have a say, and their say is definitely against any kind of peace deal, now that there doesn't seem to be one right now, or any movement towards one. So a lot of different factions. Iranian people still subjugated, the executions continue, the jailing continues, the human rights abuses continue, the oil prices continue surging, and there seems to be no peace on the horizon.
All right, watching it closely as always with all of our deep contacts in the Middle East, Courtney Kealy, thank you so much. Good to talk to you today.